So you may be wondering, why isn't self-compassion more prevalent? Why is it not a value that's encouraged in our culture? In fact, it's often a value that's discouraged in our culture. Why? A lot of reasons, actually, but I'd like to just name a few. One is that people think that self-compassion is weak, that it's soft, fluffy like a little bunny rabbit. Our ideal, at least in Western culture, is John Wayne. Stoic, strong. It's hard to imagine John Wayne putting his hands on his heart, isn't it? And in fact, I write a lot about self-compassion in the media, and some of the comments I get are things like, "Oh yeah, great, just what we need, a nation of sissies." There really is this idea that this is something a sissy would do. It's not strong and powerful. And so my response to that is, oh yeah? Think about people like Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Mother Teresa. Some of the most powerful leaders of our time have based their movements for peace on the core concept of compassion. Compassion, because it's concerned with the alleviation of suffering, often very powerfully says, no, that's not okay. And it can be a very powerful force for change. Another common block to self-compassion is confusion with self-pity. Isn't being compassionate to yourself really just indulging in a pity party? I would say no. They're very, very different. So why is self-pity annoying? Because let's face it, it is annoying when someone's lost in self-pity. First of all, it's because it's incredibly egocentric. Someone who is pitying themselves is saying, woe is me. They aren't caring about anyone else in that moment. They're very focused on their own situation. And what's more, they're usually really exaggerating how bad it is. They're making a drama out of things. Self-compassion feels very different. It's not poor me, woe is me. It's saying, this is the shared human condition. Life is hard. Life is a struggle. You aren't saying that you're suffering any worse than anyone else. You're just acknowledging that this is something we all experience. And more than that, because self-compassion entails mindfulness, this means that we don't run away with an exaggerated storyline of how bad things are. It really is quite different than self-pity. Another big confusion is with self-indulgence. I mean, if I'm compassionate to myself, aren't I just gonna, give myself whatever I want? Maybe I'll stay home from work today and I will just watch TV reruns and boy, that tub of ice cream looks pretty good. People are really afraid that they will be self-indulgent if they're kind to themselves. Self-compassion means you are concerned with your own well-being and you don't want yourself to suffer. But remembering again, compassion is always concerned with the alleviation of suffering. So let's say there was a very compassionate mother who had a child that she completely loved and accepted. But if her child wanted to skip school and watch TV reruns all day and eat ice cream, that wouldn't be the act of a loving, compassionate mother. That would be an indulgent mother. But a good mother doesn't do that. A good mother says, no, you have to go to school. You have to do your homework. You have to eat your vegetables. You got to go to bed on time. Because when you care about someone and you don't want them to suffer, you want them to be healthy. And so it's the same with us. If we're compassionate to ourselves, our ultimate goal is our own health and well-being. And in fact, I think that's really the key dividing line between self-compassion and self-indulgence. So for example, let's say you're stressed and you get a massage. Well, that can actually be a self-compassionate act. You needed that. You needed a little downtime to give yourself some TLC. But if you get a massage every night and you can't afford it, and it's making you be irresponsible in other ways, that's self-indulgent. So the line between the two is always, is this helping me or harming me in the long run? There's also a confusion between self-compassion and letting yourself off the hook. People think if I say, well, I'm only human, that means I don't need to take responsibility for my actions. And I think another reason there's a confusion here is the word judgment can have several meanings. Judgment, the way I'm using it, means harsh criticism, labeling oneself as bad. Judgment has another meaning, which is wisdom, the wisdom that a judge has, discernment. Self-compassion involves discernment. You need discernment to see what's healthy or unhealthy for yourself. And the beautiful thing about self-compassion is if you know that you aren't going to beat yourself up if you fail or make a mistake, it's going to be so much easier to see yourself clearly because it's safe to do so. So actually, and we do have some research to support this, self-compassionate people are more likely to take responsibility for their mistakes because they are able to see themselves clearly in a way that is hard to do if you know the threat of self-punishment is just around the corner. The biggest block to self-compassion, though, that I find is the belief that we need harsh criticism to motivate ourselves. It used to be the adage, spare the rod, spoil the child. And thank goodness we seem to have moved beyond that philosophy in parenting in modern times. For whatever reason, we still seem to believe it for ourselves. That if we aren't harsh, cruel even, to get ourselves moving, we're going to be spoiled. Again, I would ask, is that true? Let's take the example of parenting again, since I feel it's a lot easier to have clarity about these issues when we think about an ideally compassionate parent. So let's say there's a father whose teenage son comes back from school one day with a failing math grade on an exam. So there's really two ways to deal with this. One way would be through harsh criticism. So the father could say something like, I am ashamed of you. You are a loser. You're never going to amount to anything if you keep getting grades like this. Doesn't it make you cringe? And is that going to motivate the son to try harder? You know, if anything, it'll make the son feel depressed, lose confidence in himself, be afraid to try, because if he tries and fails, this is what he'll be met with. The more compassionate way to respond to the son would be to say something like, oh, I'm sorry, you must be really disappointed. Well, you know, it happens to all of us. I know you're a smart kid. I believe in you. We just need to work a little harder. How can I help you? Because I know you want to go to college, and it's important to have good math grades to go to college. Do you want me to help you with your homework at night? Should we hire a tutor? Should we talk to the teacher? If the parent gives his son the sense that he is accepted no matter what, even if he fails, then that boy is going to have much more self-confidence and feel that it's much safer to try to challenge himself. Because if he does fail, not only does he have his father's love and acceptance, he also has his support and encouragement. And we'll be talking more about motivation in the next session because I really think it's key to learn how to take that second approach with ourselves to motivate healthy change with love, not with harsh self-criticism.